While this is not exactly the most exciting, fun, or lighthearted topic to be talking about, it is sadly unavoidable. The sobering truth is that as much as the NFL owners, players, and of course the fans want to see football taking place on Sundays in the fall, the season is still very much hanging in the balance. After all, we are still in the midst of a global pandemic and all, and while things do appear to be trending upwards, it is still very much a developing situation. Sure, there are millions and millions of dollars at stake, there's no denying that, and the fact of the matter is, when there is that much financial incentive, people are going to push the limits, and they're going to try their damnedest to make sure that something is happening on the gridiron come fall. But even with all the power and money that the NFL has, fighting the coronavirus has proven to be an uphill battle for its peers, as it's already brought the NBA and NHL playoffs to a standstill, got the Tokyo Olympics postponed at least a year, delayed the start of Major League Baseball, and prompted March Madness to be canceled entirely. So to think that just because there is a boatload of money at stake, the season will surely go on, is honestly pretty short-sighted, especially based on everything that we've seen transpire so far. And that remains true now. Even as the rumors continue to swirl around the return of the NBA and NHL for postseason action, and the eventual start of MLB's season, as even if those leagues are able to get started up, none of them can guarantee that football will be played in the fall. Because even if these leagues do return this summer, all it takes is one wicked relapse for everything to snap back to quarantine life, and any hope of football being played will evaporate. I mean, just check out what the NFL's chief medical officer, Dr. Alan Sills, had to say on the matter. As long as we're in a place where when a single individual tests positive for the virus, that you have to quarantine every single person who is in contact with them in any shape, form, or fashion, then I don't think you can begin to think about reopening a team sport, because we're going to have positive cases for a very long time. Good on him for doing his job with integrity, but I can't imagine that the NFL owners were too happy to hear him say this. After all, this is not exactly what you want to hear out of a league employee. Now, this isn't to play gloom and doom, nor am I trying to say that the world is ending and the sky is crashing, although in these times it definitely feels that way. The truth is, with all the money and resources being allocated to fighting the virus and money that the NFL has to ensure that games are played safely, I'm still optimistic that there might be football this fall. At least I sure hope there is. But let's take a look at what the fallout would look like if the NFL is unable to get started, and explore what the financial effects would be for both the teams, players, and cities if the 2020 NFL season does get canceled because of the coronavirus. Let's start off with the people that have the least to gain from the season happening and, ironically, seem to care the most. The fans. Obviously, the average NFL fan just misses out on Sunday afternoon viewings and a reason to frequent their local watering hole on a Monday and Thursday night. But what about the season ticket holders? After all, there have been all sorts of stories that have been swirling around about some teams returning fees and some not. And the reality of the situation is that even if the NFL returns, the likelihood that the games are played in front of fans is very minimal, especially at the start of the season. So, what is the NFL's plan to compensate fans that have already shelled out thousands of dollars on tickets for the 2020 season? According to a copy of an official NFL memo, which was obtained by the Associated Press, the NFL's official refund policy is, all clubs will have in place a policy under which, if a game is canceled or is played under conditions that prohibit fans from attending, anyone purchasing a ticket directly from the club, i.e. season tickets, group sales, and/or partial season plans, will have the option of either receiving a full refund or applying the amount paid toward a future ticket purchase directly from the club. In layman's terms, the league has basically said that in light of the situation that has developed around the coronavirus, fans who bought tickets from the team and fans who purchased their tickets on the secondary market should be in line for a refund. According to the Associated Press, Ticketmaster and SeatGeek have already stepped up and promised to offer full refunds. But StubHub, for reasons unknown, has decided to only offer refunds where it's required by state law, which honestly, if you ask me, seems pretty shady. And while the NFL is by and large doing the right thing here by announcing that the fans will be protected, let's not get carried away and start thinking that this is some sort of grand altruistic gesture by the multi-billion-dollar money printing machine that is the NFL. In fact, it was a much more strategic decision than you might imagine, or care to believe. The league's decision to release this COVID-19 policy just so happened to coincide with its release of the 2020 NFL schedule, which just so happens to be when teams start selling the bulk of their tickets. Economic uncertainty aside, which is a pretty damn big thing to put aside, demand might never have been lower, at least in the modern NFL. The idea of NFL fans shelling out their hard-earned money to pack themselves into a mass gathering that may or may not even be allowed to happen come fall is beyond shaky. And I think the NFL realized that and subsequently decided that they ought to get out in front of this one and clearly outline a refund plan, so that the fans who wanted to take a chance and purchase some tickets for the games this fall knew at the very least they'd get their money back if the game never happened. Releasing that memo was just a little confidence booster for the consumers to build up some trust heading into the fall. It is smart of the NFL owners to act somewhat proactively, and to be honest, they're going to need a whole lot more of that if they want to ensure that they don't end up taking a big financial loss this season. Especially because it seems like they were not as prepared for this kind of chaos. At least not as prepared as the NBA was, as it already had a force majeure provision written into its collective bargaining agreement with the players. The NBA's force majeure provision states that its players lose about 1% of their salary for every game that is missed, and while the players and management are both trying to negotiate around it whilst trying to save their season, the truth is, the NBA owners have it all in writing. The NFL, on the other hand, well, they don't have anything.
We've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas.
Not only does the CBA not have a single mention of force majeure, but none of the standard player contracts have any language on the topic either. Literally, the only mention of this type of scenario comes in Article 19 of the NFL Constitution. There shall be no postponement of regular season games unless said games cannot be played because of an act of God or because of a state, federal, or local prohibition, which really does nothing for either the owners or the players financially. The reality of the situation is, if the season is canceled or even shortened a little bit, it would almost definitely require some more negotiations between the owners and the NFLPA, and not just over the basics, like compensation or bonuses, because those sort of things should be relatively straightforward. If you play, you get paid. If not, you might be out of luck, unless you're a big-time star who had a big signing bonus or a player-friendly contract written up. Unfortunately, the majority of the NFL players will receive no payment of base salary on per-game bonuses if the season is canceled, which is something that nobody wants. Not to mention the little details, like the $1,150 weekly stipend for rookies and the $2,000 weekly stipend for veterans that players will be missing out on if training camps get canceled, or the various workout bonuses that certain players receive. I know those numbers seem small in the grand scheme of things, especially with some of the big names in the league making bundles of money, but there are still plenty of players on the fringe of these 53-man rosters that don't have the financial foundation to absorb these kind of losses. So what may seem trivial to the fans is a critical matter that is worth resolving. But perhaps what is more interesting is how the canceled or shortened season would impact the player's tenure for free agency and post their career benefits. Obviously, the owners are going to want to continue to cut costs as much as they can, but the issues get complicated when it's affecting players' livelihoods. It's easy to forget because the salaries are so big, but professional athletes have an inherently short peak earnings period, so they might need to get creative when it comes to making sure that they're compensated correctly for their services. This is a surprisingly important issue, and one that probably doesn't have a right answer. But regardless, it will need to be handled very delicately. And rightfully so, as it is crucial that the players are taken care of by the league's billionaire owners in times of crisis. While there is still much to be determined when it comes to the viability of the 2020 NFL season, there is one piece of it that the league still has full control over. And that is its schedule. There is no need for them to address the CBA or networks or anything like that, because Commissioner Roger Goodell and the owners likely have control over the schedule and can unilaterally make decisions on season structure, scheduling, and playoffs. And that means if they feel it gives them the best chance to make the most money by starting the season later than originally planned, or reducing the schedule to less total games, or changing the playoff structure, they can do whatever they see fit. Just like they did during the 82 strike shortened season, when the NFL decided to go with a 9-game regular season, but opened up the playoff field to 16 teams, and eliminated byes for that year's postseason. It seems like the NFL is still targeting its typical early September start date, and that the owners would rather take a hit on the loss of ticket sales and merchandise than defer payment on the TV rights for those early season games. After all, the television deals with the networks is where all of the big money is coming into the NFL economy. Also, if the NFL did decide to postpone the start of the season and cause it to run later, say into early March, when the 2021 league year is supposed to start, it would push into the start of the next year's free agency period, and planning around that would require negotiations with the NFLPA. So, realistically speaking, it makes the most sense for the NFL to just try and do whatever it can to make sure the season starts on time, whether it's with the fans or without. And if they're able to start bringing fans back into the stadiums as the season goes on, they can cross that bridge when they come to it. At this point, so much is still in the air, and many dominoes will need to fall to determine if and when NFL games are played this year, and if there will be fans there. At this point, it seems like some sort of financial loss is pretty much unavoidable. The NFL may need to rework the schedule or its deal with the NFLPA, but one thing is for certain: if there is a way to make the 2020 season happen, you better believe that it will. Because the NFL owners do not want to deal with the same craziness that MLB, the NBA, and the NHL are dealing with now. Do you think that the NFL is going to be able to start up its season on time, or do you think they're going to push it back a month or so? Let us know in the comments section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a bunch, and we really appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a really good idea, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.